Hare Krishna Nikunja Biharni.
Hare Krishna Nikunja Viharini.
You okay?
Krishna. Yes.
You need that's a big subject, not a small thing at all. There's 26 verses there, and it's an important thing. So I don't know. I guess it's legal just to talk about anything in connection with Kunti Devi's prayers. Is that right? And I have some things from Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, who wrote me yesterday to remind me that I'm supposed to write something about his book, which I haven't finished reading yet. But it's about Kunti Devi's prayers, and I have some things. Some of it is I took some ideas. Some of the ideas are the same things from some of our recent Prem Bhakti Chandrika talks. So is that we're on now? We're finished with all of our personal talks and we're ready for some Harikatha.
Okay. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Oh, we're supposed to do Mangalacharana, aren't
Yes.
we? All right. Oh my gosh, I have to find it here. Why don't I just, while I'm looking for it, why don't I just go ahead and start? Om Gyana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Militam Jina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. What am I doing? Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Sarvandarotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamadurayat Vedi Ramayanesh Chaiva Purane Bharate Tata Adavante Chamadye Chahari Sarvatra Giyate Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda He Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandavela Parikoribe Chakadolan Se Chakadolanka Padaye Manamo Rahu Nirantare Manamo Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Boli Jiva Jao. Ha Krishna Boli Jao Jiva. Moteu Dada Radha Dava. Moteu Dada Radha Dava. Moteu Dada Radha Dava. Dharma Projita Kaita Votra Padamo Nirmachanam Satam. Vidyam Vastavamattavastu Shivadam Tapatrayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamune Katekim Vapadayishvaraha Sadyo Hridyavarudhyate Tukritibi Shushu Shubhistakshanat Nigamako Pataro Galitam Phalam Shukamukadamitra Drabasam Yutam Pivata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Mohoroho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha Anartopasamam Sakshad Bhakti Yogam Hoksuje Lokasya Janato Vidvams Chakre Satvata Samhitam Yasham Vaishiyamanayam Krishne Paramapurushe Bhakti Rudpadyate Pumsa Shoka Moha Bhayapaha Srimad Bhagavatam Paranamamalam Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam Yasmin Paramaham Samekam Amalam Gyanam Param Giyate Tattvagyana Viragya Bhakti Sahitam Naiskaramyam Aviskritam Touchtrin Van Supatin Vicharana Paro Bhaktya Vimuchan Naraha Arato Yam Brahma Sutranam Bhadatarta Vinirnayaha Gayatri Bashurupo So Vedartha Paribhramitaha Sarva Vediti Hasanam Sadam Sadam Samudritam Sarva Vedanta Sadam Hi Shri Bhagavatam Ishyate Tadrasamrita Triptasyanam Yatra Sadvachi Kvachit Krishna Bhakti Rasa Swarup Shri Bhagavata Tate Veda Shastra Hoite Paramamahatvam Chariveda Upanishade Jata Kichu Hoya Tara Arta Lanavyasa Korila Sanchaya Jai Sutre Jai Ruk Vishaya Vachana Bhagavate Seruk Shloke Nibandana Jivera Nishtara Lagi Sutra Koilo Vyasa Mayavadi Bhashya Shunile Hoya Sarvanasam Jaho Bhagavata Pada Vaishnavira Stane Ekanta Shayakoro Chaitanya Charane Bhagavata Jainamane Sejavana Sama Tada Sasta Achijanme Janme Prabhu Jama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I was thinking about Kunti's prayers and what is the significance of them, and because I guess we're going to do this in one session. And for me, first of all, I had this humble realization that I really like having a week-long session of 2 hours a day on one word from Srimad Bhagavatam. Seriously, you really get, it's just so ecstatic. And what to speak if you have one session on 26 verses and just doing overview things, and even trying to follow Goswami Maharaj is so ecstatic, and he's just someone I love, and I appreciate so much his teachings. But it's just it's something you can, it's kind of a spectator sport, I kind of find, to have something of an overview. So I'm going to give an overview today, but I want to do it in a certain way. Actually, I was thinking mostly to read, and I'm going to show you on the screen what I'm reading from, which mostly is from an article from Brahmananda Prabhu, who is someone that I love very much, and somehow he had some affection for me, Prabhupada's very senior disciple. He wrote an article called The Prayers of Queen Kunti and Prabhupada's Triumph Over Adversity. And I thought this is a perfect article. And I'm not going to actually, I'm going to kind of paraphrase it, and you'll be able to look at it while I'm reading. I thought it was a perfect introduction for us, because what do these prayers mean to us? That's really the first thing that we want to understand. If you're going to go somewhere, your first thing is you can see the forest before you can see the individual trees, and you have to understand, why do I want to go to this forest? What is the purpose of this forest? Why am I going here instead of some other particular place? So, saying all that, let's go. This is something which was published in Back to Godhead magazine. I don't know when, a long time ago. So I'm going to put this on the screen, and I'm just kind of read and paraphrase some things. So he speaks about Queen Kunti, how she was 5,000 years ago, the sister of Vasudeva, Krishna's father, and how she's spoken about in the Bhagavatam, and her prayers are so important, and how her prayers, according to the VBT, are immortalized in the Mahabharata and the Bhagavat Purana. They've been recited, chanted, and sung by sages and philosophers for thousands of years. So these prayers, they're 26 verses, verses 18 to 43 of the 8th chapter of the first canto. But there's a really beautiful comment here. They are considered a philosophical theological and literary masterpiece. That's a quote from the BBT. I I was looking some things up about these prayers today and how to present them overall, and I really like that comment. But I have to tell all of you, frankly, as a publisher and a writer researcher, we don't do that generally. Sometimes we might say something like this, I guess. But in general, rather than saying they are considered a philosophical, theological, and literary masterpiece, you should quote different philosophers, theologians, and writers, great writers, who explain how this is a great masterpiece. You should show it rather than just kind of coming and saying it. So I was a little hesitant, but here it is again in this article by Brahmananda Prabhu. So um, Prabhupada gave these talks in 1973, and there's a very interesting thing that came up. Anapani will appreciate this. You know Pancharatna Prabhu, right? Anapani. In fact, I think you went to
Yeah,
lunch with this.
yeah,
I
I,
mean,
I,
coincidentally, just as I'm reading this, I got a letter from Pancharatna Prabhu today too, and you'll see how he plays into all this whole thing. So anyway, he's commenting here, Brahmananda, as an early member of the Krishna conscious movement, I personally saw how deeply important Kunti Devi's prayers were to Srila Prabhupada. And he's commenting, even before ISKCON was founded in 1966, Prabhupada was staying in West 72nd Street in New York City. It was the winter of 1965 and 66. It was a very cold, heavy duty winter. Prabhupada was alone. He had his quarters had no shower, no kitchen. To take a bath and to cook his meals, Prabhupada had to walk 7 blocks in the frigid cold with the winds, howling winds blowing off the Hudson River onto Riverside Drive. New York City is damn cold in the winter. And that was a particularly cold winter. And it was the first time Prabhupada had gone there. I really can relate to this. He said, although Prabhupada had an overcoat and a sweater, his clothes with a thin cloth he'd worn from Vrindavan and were suited for hot tropical climates and not New York winters. So he had to walk for 7 blocks. So at that time, Srila Prabhupada, he put aside money, which is equivalent of about one month's rent, and he purchased a tape recorder. No one was there. Prabhupada sat down and he made a recording of himself singing Kunti Devi's prayers. It is quite extraordinary. This is before the movement had started. This is before Prabhupada was preaching to anybody. He was just kind of a he was a Indian Swami at Dr. Mishra's programs. There's a couple of people who had talked to him, but mostly Prabhupada was quiet and just kind of in the background. And those days were very, very hard. And Brahmananda comments that he felt that Prabhupada was inspired to meditate very deeply on these verses during this period because it was a time of hardship and difficulty for him. And these verses gave him some solace as he thought about their meaning in relation to his own life. So I found that very beautiful. Okay, this is Prabhupada himself during such hard times. He was singing these prayers with Queen Kunti. And Brahmananda, I think he comments somewhere in this article, maybe we already passed it. Maybe it's coming up in a moment, another paragraph. But he said that this is the only verses from the Bhagavatam, the only prayers, at least from the Bhagavatam, specifically that Prabhupada recorded. So these are very, very dear to him. And if Srila Prabhupada got solace and strength from these verses, meditating on them during his times of difficulty, it's certainly something we can get inspiration from. So then shortly after that, he opened the storefront on 26 Second Avenue. On a pine, you got to tell your husband to take you there sometime. You should visit the Bhakti Center while you're there also. You'll be in ecstasy, and the Harinam program.
yeah, I
And
already asked them to bring me there.
yeah, you already been there?
No, I only asked him for that, so I'm waiting for the fulfilling of the wish.
Okay, that's what husbands are supposed to do. My grandmother once said that the duty of the husband is to fulfill all the demands of the wife. So don't make a lot of demands on him, but he's supposed to fulfill. So Prabhupada had started this temple there on 22nd Avenue, which you can still go to today. And it's like, you see the paintings of Jadurani on the wall, some of them, and it looked like something that a 5-year-old kid did or something. They were really, honestly speaking, on a pine to your art, which I can understand speaking with you and working with you on your paintings. You felt like they were very primitive. But if you look at what Jadurani did, her first paintings, your stuff looks like a Michelangelo, something in comparison. Her stuff was really simple. And that place is so tiny and so small. And Prabhupada was serving there. And the devotees who were coming, as Brahmananda is saying, they didn't understand how to serve a guru. They didn't know anything. It was a difficult time for Prabhupada, but Prabhupada, as you said, was always full of energy. But then on the 31st of May, on Memorial Day, 1967, Prabhupada had a stroke. And at that time, he mentions that most of the doctors, because it was Memorial Day, they were on vacation, and we couldn't get anybody to come and treat Prabhupada. Prabhupada was experiencing spasms and paralysis. We didn't know what to do. Brahmananda Prabhu just loves Prabhupada. I used to go every year to Vrindavan for Prabhupada's disappearance day, and Brahmananda was the MC. And Brahmananda would just cry every year. I'll just never forget how he would be the MC for those programs. It was very, very, very beautiful talking about Prabhupada. So he was there trying to massage Prabhupada, but he was worried that even the massage might make things worse. And then Prabhupada told him three things. Number one, that this newly painted painting that Jadurani did of Lord Nrsingadev be put before him. And then he taught the devotees in the Nrsingadev prayers. And they told them they should all chant that, and they should chant the Hare Krishna mantra. And so devotees started doing that all day and night, doing 24-hour kirtan in New York and at the San Francisco Center. And then the third thing Prabhupada asked for, he said he wanted Brahmananda to read to him the prayers of Kunti Devi from the Bhagavatam. And Brahmananda, who never became a great Sanskrit scholar, although he was a school teacher before he joined, he was actually a very learned person and very thoughtful. I had a lot of wonderful talks with him. Krishna Khan, come here and do something with your phone, please.
Makes terrible noises. Great story.
Okay. So Prabhupada wanted him to read the preachings of Queen Kunti from the Bhagavatam to him, and Brahmananda wasn't, his pronunciation of Sanskrit wasn't so great, and he was very self-conscious. And and he was so weird. So he started reciting this thing, and Prabhupada accepted it and was happy to hear that from him during this life-threatening crisis. And then later on, he mentions how a few years later, in August of 1974, Prabhupada was there in Vrindavan, and he was overseeing the construction of the temple, which was going to open in April 1975. And Prabhupada observed Krishna Janmashtami, and the next day was his Vyas Puja day. And the day after that, Prabhupada became very, very ill. He had a high fever and he was completely collapsed. And Brahmananda was serving him as his personal secretary. Shrutakirti Prabhu was also there. The devotees several devotees had had malaria around that time, including Shrutakirti and his replacement, Kuladri. Kuladri, to those of you who don't know, has been the probably longest term serving temple president in New Vrindavan. And he did a lot of service to Prabhupada. He's had a lot of association with Prabhupada, and he's still there in New Vrindavan. Somebody I always wanted to meet. I never got a chance. So anyway, Prabhupada had a fever that went up to 105. Gosh, I don't know what that is in centigrade. But his symptoms weren't exactly like malaria. And different doctors, allopathic and Ayurvedic doctors, and so many different people were trying to treat him, but nobody was able to cure him. It was a crisis. Prabhupada was getting worse. Nobody knew what to do. Prabhupada wasn't saying very much. But he did tell the devotees that at the time when the guru accepts the disciple, he accepts some of the karma of the disciples at the time of initiation. And if some of the disciples don't follow properly and they commit some offenses or sins, then the guru may be affected by that and become ill. And so that was very disturbing to all of them. And Prabhupada asked the devotees again to pray to Lord Nrsingadev and do kirtan, which they were doing all over the world. And then again, Prabhupada asked him to read to him as he lay there, very, very looking like he may leave his body, the prayers of Queen Kunti. And so he was reading from that. It was, this time it had diacritical marks. Previously, Brahmananda was reading from Prabhupada's first Bhagavatam, which didn't have diacritical marks. And he, at that time, had no idea how to pronounce Sanskrit. By then, he learned something more. And although he says not perfectly, so Shrutakirti, and he were taking turns reading. And then Pradyumna Prabhu was there. Pradyumna Prabhu is still there today, as far as I know. He's also in New York, staying at the Bhakti Center last time I was there. He's a wonderful devotee. I introduced my mother to Pradyumna. Anyway, and Pradyumna was reading with perfect pronunciation, everything. And Prabhupada, Brahmananda comments, was demonstrating the importance of hearing these prayers during a personal crisis, and how hearing those particular prayers gave Prabhupada some satisfaction and strength. And Brahmananda comments even, he says it could even be said that this is what eventually cured him, because clearly none of the doctors did. And then Prabhupada later wrote a letter about that on the 7th of October, 1974. I guess this is to the Brahmananda. I thank you for your concern for my well-being. Actually, I was very ill. I was falling down. But by your prayers, Krishna has kindly made me recover. Because you have prayed to Krishna, therefore I have recovered. Just like Srimati Kunti Devi, when there was difficulty, she prayed to Krishna. That is Krishna consciousness. Not that when there's difficulty, I shall forget Krishna. Whatever the material condition may be, we should just cling to Krishna's lotus feet. And then he noted, oh, this is a part with Pancharatna Prabhu. He noted how Prabhupada extensively lectured on these things. And in April 1973, Brahmananda had been traveling with Prabhupada as his personal secretary, and Pancharatna Prabhu in New York, and Pancharatna Prabhu is still serving in New York. He just wrote me he's going to Hawaii. He's coming back to New York. He said, I heard you're going to be in New York, Madhavan, and we want to meet you. And I said, well, that's news to me. Maybe somebody had a bad dream or something. I don't know, but we're not, we're not going to be in New York right now. So Pancharatna Prabhu approached him and told him that I had this new technology, this new machine. It's called video. And I want to make a video of Srila Prabhupada. It was only in black and white. And, and Brahmananda commented, no one else in the movement had such a contraption, nor did anyone have a videotape player, what to speak of a television. Nobody even knew what the heck it was. So he allowed him to videotape Prabhupada, but he became very uncomfortable because they set up all these lights and different things, and Prabhupada wasn't very comfortable with that kind of thing because it disturbed him and it disturbed the listeners. So he had all these floodlights and wires and equipment and cases and all this stuff. And but somehow Prabhupada just tolerated that. And Prabhupada didn't complain. And Brahmananda said, I didn't say anything either, but I only frowned at Pancharatna for causing this inconvenient scene. If you knew Brahmananda, when Brahmananda Prabhu would frown, you start shaking. It's like Brahmananda is a heavy guy in many, many different ways. But God bless Pancharatna Prabhu. He videotaped those things. And because of that videotape, those classes, that became the teachings of Queen Kunti. They're very, very important, very, very dear to Srila Prabhupada. So then he comments something about the prayers of Queen Kunti, the Sherman South, and I'm going to skip over that. But anyway, I found that very significant for all of us, how important these teachings of Queen Kunti were to Srila Prabhupada. So I just looked at the first three verses or so of these prayers, and I have a few simple comments, observations on them. And I'd like to look at them then a little bit through the lens of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which we did recently, as we were mentioning in our Prem Bhakti Chandrika Kathas. So the first prayer that Kunti Devi offers is text 18 of the 8th chapter. And she speaks something about Antarbahiravastitam, how Krishna's within and without everything. And this is how she begins her prayers, speaking about the position of Krishna. Let's just look at that. Namashe Purisham Tvadyam Ishwaram Prakrite Param Alaksham Sarvabhutanam Antarbahir Avastitam. So I'm not, at this point, we could read from Prabhupada's commentary. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives long commentaries on these prayers. He describes a conversation between Krishna and Kunti Devi in his Sarta Darshini. But it's a little hard to focus with that. And I don't know if that's exactly for our purpose. And if we get into Prabhupada's purport or Vishwanath's purports, we're not going to get past this first verse. So my proposal to all of you with your approval is let's do the first 3 verses and just speak about some realization ourselves and some things that we've heard. So she begins to offer her namaskar, namashe purisham tvadyam. And she addresses him immediately. I found this personally significant as Purusha, as the supreme male. Prabhupada here is translated the supreme person, but Purusha literally means the supreme male. Todiyam Ishwaram Prakrite Param, that you're the original controller of this Prakriti. So she's speaking about Purusha and Prakriti. We're going to get to this in a minute on the 3rd verse, the 20th verse, which speaks something about the feminine energy. I just found it significant from the very beginning. Kunti Devi speaking about Purusha and Prakriti, male and female. And of course, Prakriti here meaning the material cosmos, and Purusha, the supreme person. Alaksham, that she's glorifying him. You're the supreme controller, but nobody can see you. Alaksham, sarvabhutanam antarbahiravastitam. Alaksham sarvabhutanam, although nobody can see you, at the same time, antarbahiravastitam, you're with inside of everything and you're outside of everything at the same time. So this is how Kunti Devi begins her prayers. I thought this is very significant for us and something to learn from. When we approach Guru, when we approach Krishna or some great personality, and we want to have a relationship with him, we know from the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj that Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dashyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. There's Navavidi Bhakti, there's 9 different processes, one of which is offering prayers, another which is Sakyam, is to be a friend. But that comes way down the line. And those Navavidi Bhakti goes in sequence also. First thing is that we hear Shravanam, then Kirtanam, then we speak. In Vishnu Smaranam, we remember who we're speaking to, and that this person is Vishnu. He doesn't even say Krishna Smaranam in a sweet way, but Vishnu Smaranam, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Kunti Devi is beginning her prayers in this way, not talking about, hey, Krishna, I remember when you came and visited us and we had prasadam and we were making some jokes with you and it was very sweet and intimate. But she's speaking about how Krishna is God, Antarbahiravastitam, and how he's a supreme Purush and how he's controlling Prakriti. So that's his first thing. And then in the next prayer, in the 19th verse, she uses the word adhoksajam. Agyan adhoksajam avayam. Maya jana tikachanam agyad hoksajam avyayam nalakshase mudha drisha nato nadyadaro yata. That you're at hoksaja. You're beyond the perception of the senses. Now, this may sound a little repetition because already she said, Alaksha, that you're invisible. Nobody can perceive you, but she's re-emphasizing it here, and she's expressing her own inability. In that sense, we can't approach you, we can't see you. Beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are the eternally irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of diluting energy. You're invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. So I'm kind of breezing through these first three verses. If anybody has any reflections or comments or something you want to offer for one of them, go ahead and say something now. So she's saying that you're at Hokshaja. I can't understand. So then how do you understand him? In the next verse, Kunti Devi addresses that you personally descend. Hmm? And some of our acharyas have commented that this means guru. Krishna's personally descending in a form that we can see. Tata paramahangsanam muninam amalatmanam bhakti yoga vidanartam katam pashemahi striyaha. That you personally come to give this to the hearts of, Prabhupada says, into the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators. That's beautiful. That's how he translates muninam, as mental speculators, who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly? So in the previous verse, these are going in sequence. In the first verse, in text 18, she prays, "Your God, please accept my humble obeisances. This is how I am approaching you." And then she says that nobody can see you, and you're the Purush, you're controlling Prakriti. And then in the next verse, she says that you're at Hoksaja, that you're beyond limited sense perception, which means that I can't speak about you with my senses. So how am I supposed to be able to approach you? How am I supposed to be able to glorify you? Because I'm just starting my prayers. I want to speak something about you. And here in this verse, in Kunti Devi gives some explanation, because you've descended personally to disseminate this. And how have you descended? Tata paramahangsanam muninam amalatmanam. You appear to give this knowledge through the paramahamsas and the munis, those persons who are very thoughtful, who are amala atmanam, whose atmanam, their mind, Prabhupada says, those whose minds are competent to discern between spirit and matter. Amala means without any, mala means we have the mala mas, the Purushottam Adhika mas. It's called mala mas. Mala means something with fault. So amala means something which is pure. Amala atmanam. Someone whose mind, Prabhupada translates atma here is a mind. Mind, of course, atma also, of course, means the self or the soul. Amala atmana means they're able to distinguish between what is spirit and what is matter, because Krishna has come to them, spoke to them. And then Pashemahi Striyaha, Katam Pashemahi Striya. Kunti Devi says, then how can we women know you perfectly? Now, I have to say honestly, because of my liberal background growing up in the San Francisco area in California in the 70s, late 70s, I'm uncomfortable, honestly, when I hear statements like this. How then can we women know you perfectly? And then I thought about this some. I'd like to share with you some of my thoughts about this. First of all, it's not that that women are, we say women are less intelligent, but if women are less intelligent, why is it that we read the Gopi Gita? Why is it that the Gopi Gita is one of the most important chapters in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam? Why do we worship the gopis? Why do we have the teachings of Queen Kunti? And why Kunti Devi, she's describing herself like this. And then thinking more about it, I thought there's a kind of irony here. The irony is that I'm reading this. Kunti Devi, she's saying that how can we women know you perfectly? And here I'm a superior male, but I'm taking shelter of Kunti Devi. Obviously, she's much, much greater than myself. And this is given by Shukadeva Goswami, by Srila Vyasadeva in the Bhagavatam. So it has some purport to it. And it reminds me of what Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj describes in his book, he's written a book called Healing Prayers, which really focuses a lot on Kunti Devi's prayers. And I took some inspiration from some of it and looked up some different things kind of in the direction he was pointing from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And we spoke about this in the last couple sessions we had of our Prem Bhakti Chandrika. I'd like to go to this because not all of you were there in those classes either. So this is from the first wave, second shower, text 152. Samprartanatmika dainya bodhika lalasamoyi ityadir vivida dirai Krishna vigyaptir irita. And the wise persons have explained that there are three types of prayers to Krishna. There are general prayers of mission of incompetence and expressions of longing. Vishnu Chakrabarti Thakur explains in his purport that samprartana anutpanna bhavasya, that samprartana, that's the first type of prayer. And these are from people who are anutpanna bhavasya. They haven't yet attained the stage of bhav. And then there's lalasa utpanna bhavasya iti bedo gyayaha, the other two, which is lalasa and dainya bodhika. Those are from persons who have attained the platform of bhav. So these are three different types of prayers. Samprartana or samprartana atmika. Atmika just refers to the self. Samprartana. Samprartana means a complete prayer. Prartana, Narottam Das Thakur has given his songs of prartana. Prartana means an appeal or something, some submission that we're given. Samprartana means it's complete. And samprartana atmika means a prayer with wholehearted submission of mind, body, and everything to the Lord. And as we've been discussing in Prem Bhakti Chandrika, samprartana atmika, vigyapti or prayers, are the kind of, it indicates saranagati, indicates surrender. Dainya bodhika is when someone speaks about how fallen I am and how bad I am, how useless I am. And the third is the lasamai. That's a very, very high type of prayer in which rati is already been awakened. So samprartanatmika, dainya bodhika, and lasamai. And let's read some comments now from Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj from his new book. At first glance, it seems strange that samprartanatmika prayers precede dainya bodhika. Often we think that prayer begins with humility and repentance. When I read it, yeah, of course, my Guru Maharaj so many times, he commented that the beginning of our spiritual life is Atma Krandana, when we begin to cry from the soul. And I thought, so many times, I think all of us, I hope all of us have the experience of crying sometimes to Krishna. We feel sick. We feel sometimes just we don't sleep enough. and we go and during the morning program or something, it just hits our heart in a deeper way because perhaps we're a little bit skinny at that time. Some of the layers covering our consciousness are not there. Lila Purushottam, do you want to make some comment or something? See your hands up.
Wanted to ask one thing. As you've been dividing these parts of the word, samprartanatmika, could it be, because I'm wondering what this atmika means there, and what came to me, just one thought, I just wanted to ask if that's reasonable at all. If it could signify that it is your prayers, meaning like we are very often used to use someone else's prayer, like now we are studying Kunti's prayers, hoping that they can adjust our feelings, attitudes, motivations, whatever. But that atmika in that word sounds to me like that it's there, as if the requirement would be that it must be part of you. It must be you who are praying, your atma.
Lila Purushottam Prabhu, You're awesome. You come up with so many nice comments. That's a beautiful comment. I really love that so much. I heartily appreciate that. That's great. Yeah, so let's look at this word. Samprarthanatmaka. I'm not looking up the proper words. I actually I was trying to look up Atma right now real quick, but it's a little sometimes it's a little complicated looking in the Sanskrit dictionary for things. Um, Atma generally refers to the self. Atma can refer to the soul. Atma can refer to the mind. So you're saying it would be appropriate that this is Samprarthanatmaka, one meaning being this is my prayers, or this is the complete prayers of the soul. This is my complete prayers, Samprarthan, the Sampa, the complete prayers that I'm giving. So yeah, I like that very much. That's beautiful. So Maharaj comments that we think that prayer begins with humility and repentance. In reality, this is so important. We are unable to admit our sins simply because we do not see them, having learned to justify and excuse ourselves. And this is something we were speaking about quite a bit in our Prem Bhakti Chandrika discussions about how we can't see our own position, and therefore we go to sadhu who can see us. And I was just reading a brilliant article by Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, where he speaks about how we appreciate sadhus based on our conditioned nature, our conditioned vision. And we think that oh, this guy's a really good sadhu because he's very tolerant. Based on our vision and definition, our conditioned vision and definition of what tolerance is, or he's very sober, he's very deep, or whatever. He's a great scholar. He's a this, he's a that. But it's all based on our own subjective perception. So it's just based on our own sense gratification. We like the sadhu because he likes us. We like the sadhu because he's affectionate to me, this or that. But we actually are not the seer. And the only way that we can, but we have to distinguish between sadhus. And the only way that we can do that is if we come to the platform of Madhyamadikar. And the only way to be able to come to the platform of Madhyamadikar is to have mercy from a sadhu. So when we have that, then we can begin to see. And when we begin to see, that's the beginning of Danya Bodhika. Then we see how bad I am. When I see to the vision of someone else, you know, those hippies who were living in New York City in 1965, 1966, when Srila Prabhupada came, they thought they were very advanced. They thought they were just very great people and things. And then they started going to see Srila Prabhupada. And at first, in connection with Prabhupada, they were also thinking, yes, this is how great I am. I'm going to see the Swami. And I have this connection with the Swami. But as they got more mercy and they came closer to Srila Prabhupada, then they began to realize just how, with all respect to those wonderful devotees, how animal-like they are, and how low they are, and how exalted Srila Prabhupada is. And then they feel very bad. And of course, in the beginning, that also may be something of a reflection. So when I contemplating all of this, and Bhaktivedanta Maharaj now in this book, he's speaking about how to approach the Lord through prayer, and mostly he's using the teachings of Queen Kunti as this. And I didn't look through yet very much of what he says about Kunti Devi's prayers, a few of the verses, but this 20th verse really struck me. Let's go back up to that. Where Kunti Devi, she's saying that Katam Pashima Histriyaha. How can we women know you perfectly? And I thought, well, okay, here Kunti Devi, she's glorifying the Lord, and these are expressions of surrender. This is her samprarthana. This is her expression of samprarthana, that I'm completely surrendered to you. And then now is coming her Danya Bodhika. And she's speaking in a humble way. But these verses are given to us by a great brahmachari, Shukadeva Goswami, through the mercy of his father, Vyasadeva, two great celibate men, and they're giving us these prayers of Kunti Devi, and she's saying Katam Pashima History. Now, these prayers, this is Kunti Devi's expression, but this is also our expression. We want to find our own heart in these prayers. And so I thought to myself, I can see my heart in these prayers. This is what I'm hoping to attain, which is Dainya Bodhika, an expression of my own insignificance and ineligibility. And this is coming from Kunti Devi. She's saying this. So if she's saying this and I'm reading her prayers, I'm taking shelter of her prayers, and she's saying that she feels that she's not qualified, then, well, wait a minute. Well, what about me? So then I felt satisfied with Kunti Devi's prayers. Let's go back to Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj. Um, in reality, we're unable to admit our sins simply because we don't see them, having learned to justify and excuse ourselves. That's the way we live our lives. We overlook our own faults. We justify any of the problems we have. We excuse ourselves. He says, true humility is a matter of growing up. True humility, genuine humility, just means we become mature. When you become mature, you understand the subject matter. When you begin to study mathematics and you memorize 2 + 2 = 4 and 3 + 2 = 5 and 5 + 2 = 7, and you know all these, and you think, man, I'm almost an incarnation. You know, I really got it down like this. And then you go to class one day and the teacher says, well, today we're going to introduce you to the concept of algebra. And so speak, and then your brain melts and comes flowing out your ears in the form of water. That's humility. That humility, as Maharaj says here, is a matter of growing up. When we come in contact with higher persons, when we see reality, then we can understand our own position, and then we can come to Dainya Bodhika. But that comes after we've submitted ourselves before that sadhu. And yesterday we read a really beautiful statement from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta about, maybe I should pull it up again. Do you think, Leela Purushottam, remember that thing we read about how the sadhu takes the sacrificial knife? Okay, he likes that one too. Let's see if I can find that real quick here. I'm pretty sure I can. Yeah, here it is. So this is from an article in Harmonist Magazine, which is written by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Okay. Without a doubt, a sadhu's words possess power to destroy the evil propensities of one's mind. In this way, sadhus benefit everyone who associates with them. There are many things which we do not disclose to the sadhu. And we were speaking, but it's because we're afraid, and we want to, because of our covering, we want to try to impress the sadhu. We have this false conception of ourselves, especially in terms of gender and nationality. I am an age. I am a man. I'm an American. I'm an elderly person. I'm this and that. And then we want to, because of that bodily identification, we want some prestige, and we hide those things. We don't disclose them to the sadhu. But the real sadhu makes us speak out what we keep concealed in our hearts. And then how does he reward us for our honesty? He applies the knife. That's our reward for our honesty. The very word sadhu means cut, has no other meaning than this. One of the meanings of the word sadhu is someone who cuts. He stands in front of the block with the uplifted sacrificial knife in his hand. The sensuous desires of men are like goats. The sadhu stands there to kill those desires by the merciful stroke of the keen edge of the sacrificial knife in the form of unpleasant language. If the sadhu turns into my flatterer, then he does me harm. He becomes my enemy. If he flatters us, we'll be led to the road which brings worldly enjoyment, but no factual well-being. Whew. So this is what we get from sadhu. And this comes when we surrender to sadhu. And that surrender means that I reveal my heart, I reveal my mind to that sadhu. And I can't see who I am. So these prayers don't begin with Danya Bodhika. Maharaj makes an important point. They begin with Samprarthanatmaka. They begin with submission. And submission, though Maharaj doesn't say it here, but submission means submission to some person. We're personal. So let's go on here. This paragraph you read from Maharaj is just packed with such deep truths and phenomena we have to live through. Maharaj's ability to describe these things is simply amazing. Yeah, I remember speaking with one of the most educated, learned persons in our society. He's a good friend of yours, and that's Mother Urmila once. And she said, she said, she was practically just in awe. And she said, Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj is the greatest genius in our society today. She was so precious.
My first notice of that was his commentary to Mana Shiksha that Urmila Mataji produced. This is such a masterpiece, because what is so scary on it, actually, that as you go through the text, you just see how Maharaj describing all the things that you're going through, like, perfectly. And what is even more helpful, or what I found more helpful, that it's like updated time-wise. Maharaj is like, it's different if you hear these things from Madhurya Kadambini described by Vishwanath Chakravarti 400 years back. And if Maharaj is using the like examples and descriptions of our environment actual to the time, then you really see, like, okay, that's exactly what I live. On so many, like, just this one paragraph, what you're going through, it's
amazing, so thick. Maharaj is a great scientist. And one thing about him too, since we're glorifying Maharaj, and so wonderful to glorify the Vaishnavas, that means so much to me, is that I've seen some very smart people in our society. I know a few. I know a few geniuses who are really brilliant with Sanskrit. But Maharaj has a very special quality also. He's very dedicated to Srila Prabhupada and Prabhupada's mission. And that just wins my heart, because I know my Guru Maharaj would be so pleased with that, so delighted with that. It's one thing to be a genius and have everybody say, wow, he's a genius. And then, you distance yourself from the little people. These people don't understand. But Maharaj is not like that. He's right there with everyone. He's dedicated to Prabhupada's mission. He loves and respects all the devotees. It's a very beautiful example. Let's continue with what he says.
Yeah, please.
Genuine remorse is a result of mercy and not our own endeavors. Well, that's all packed. That's what we were just saying. When we have genuine Danya Bodhika, it's a result of mercy of sadhu. When the sadhu cuts, it's not by our own endeavor. That is the opinion of Srila Sridhar Swami in his glossary Srimad Bhagavatam. At the initial stages of our spiritual journey, our humility is a pose. We're just acting like I am the most fallen. You look at me, how humble I am. And Maharaj says that this self-centered, self-effacement is another facet of pride. Sometimes this posturing that we're doing turns into some feeling, then we become depressed and hopeless, which is also another facet of pride. Eventually, by the mercy of Krishna and his devotees, humility ceases to be faked, and genuine humility rises in the heart. And then feelings of repentance, which are softened by hope for the Lord's mercy, pour out in the shape of prayers that acknowledge the full depth of one's fall. And in his book, Maharaj gives a lot of examples of Danya Bodhika prayers, which are so wonderful. And so that's Samprarthanatmika, and that's Danya Bodhika. He speaks a little about Lalasamai as a prayer that someone, when they have deep love for Krishna and is serving him on the level of a Sakti or Bhav, and they have an insatiable desire to serve Krishna in a particular way. And prayers that are infused with that desires, they're called Lasamai. And Maharaj says sometimes devotees, they run off to Radhakund and they want to become very, very advanced and practice Ekadas Bhav and Siddha Pranali and things. But he says it's not such a simple thing. Krishna Kuhn notes, guilt is a facet of pride. Fascinating. Any elaboration on this one? Yeah, we were reading that commentary about Mahabharata some time back, which I was sharing with you, Krishna Kuhn, and how Karna got a lot of mercy. Kunti Devi, his mother, came to him and said, he didn't know that she was his mother, and said, actually, you are the oldest of the Pandavas. And you can stop this whole war. You can save Duryodhana's life. And you'll become the Yuvaraj. You'll become the next king. Yudhishthira will serve you. All the Pandavas will serve you. They have such good character. And he wouldn't do it. And then Krishna personally came to him just before the war began and told him that millions of people are going to die. Duryodhana is going to die, and you know it, because you know that the Pandavas are much, much more powerful. Already he'd been defeated by Arjun before. That's another story. You know that the Pandavas are much, much more powerful, and Duryodhana's going to die. So if you want to save Duryodhana's life, you love Duryodhana, then you should acknowledge who you are and just come on the side of the Pandavas, and the whole war will stop. So all these wonderful things, he can become the king, all the Pandavas will serve him, and he can save his best friend's life. He'll save the lives of millions of people. But Karna refused to do it. Why? Because Karna felt sorry for himself. And he was attached to getting pity and feeling bad about himself. So Maharaj is saying here, this is what I see in it, that, what is it? Sometimes this posture turns into oppressive feeling, hopelessness, and guilt, which is also a facet of pride. It's a facet of pride in that it's false ego, that and it's attachment to my own self, that I'm the most important person. That's why I feel so depressed, because things are not going well for me, the way, according to my perception of who I am. And so that's pride. Is that okay, Krishna Khan? Hope so.
Yeah, it's because things are not going the way I want. That's
Yeah,
not.
because I want everybody to give respect to me. They're not giving it. Dukkha trasa parada dharanojitam didinata. Bhakti Rasavina Sindhu
Yeah,
says there's three causes for depression.
but
So
guilt
the
is a different
for
feeling.
humility. And those things, they happen when things don't go the way that I want them to. The first is
But
dukkha. I
guilt
become
is a
unhappy.
feeling.
Excuse
Guilt,
me?
guilt is a different feeling. It's not about being falsely humble. It's, I guess,
Well, I'll put it this way. Kunti Devi, she didn't feel hopeless. Kunti Devi had every reason to feel hopeless because they tried to kill her sons with poison and with a fire, and they did so many terrible things, but she never became hopeless. She didn't become depressed. Why? Because she didn't have any false ego. Because she always considered herself to be Krishna's servant. And she accepted whatever Krishna gave. And then later we'll hear in these prayers, Vipada Santatasya Tata Jagadguru, that these problems are good. And she's actually eager for them. A statement which my grandma said, we can't imitate. We can't imitate it because we have false ego. And because we have this false ego, we become depressed sometimes. And that depression is a kind of sense gratification. because
Yeah.
we're feeling sorry for ourselves. Just like the example that we're giving of Karna. Karna felt sorry for himself. It's sense gratification. And it's a beautiful example. Leela Purushottam, you had something?
Yeah, I was thinking about it in like because that was also my question, like how could guilt be a symptom of pride actually? and, and if I would be like analyzing what that text means to me, it would bring me to something like, if on the begin like we have like two poles, like genuine humility and if we could call it genuine pride. And if the beginning of the story, of those feelings, of those emotions that we are experiencing, uh, are not sprouting for genuine humility, then they must, that by the logic, they must be some form of a pride. It might be hidden, it might not be so obvious. That's why if we hear almost contradictory terminology, guilt and pride just doesn't go together. But what else it is, if it doesn't sprout from the humility, if that feeling of the guilt is not the product of something genuine, feeling of humility in us, and it sprouts from the desire for recognition and then it's hidden pride actually. It's a way how we strive to achieve and then some recognition, some position, some, yeah, like that. Yeah, yeah. And it is connected also to me with that what you described, the Karna's case, like this victim mentality. It's actually only the soul's desire to get attention from others. And it's again the same play that we conditioned souls are playing here, like focus on me, not on Krishna, give attention to me, not to the Lord. And it's basically, if we run it down to the roots, it sprouts from the pride, from self-centeredness, and
It's a
I appreciate. Sorry.
one thing about that is when people feel hurt like that, it just overpowers their consciousness and they lose their good intelligence. And even they can't see Krishna consciousness as a solution.
yeah,
They become so attached to being a victim, or they want to champion for other victims. And even sometimes, I've seen quite a few times, they become angry with people who want to come and say, we chant Hare Krishna, everything will be okay.
yeah.
And that'll solve all the problems. They say this is simplistic, and you're not really taking care of the victims, and you're just a demon. And definitely there may have been, there certainly have been some unscrupulous persons who hid behind the process and said, well, we just chant Hare Krishna and we should respect all devotees. And anyway, Prabhu, you're a Guru Kuli and you got molested. That's your karma. You just got to accept it. It's a shallow understanding of the philosophy that they're using, and they're actually hiding behind it.
Yeah.
And it offends people. And then the result is, too, that people then they just lump in anybody who says anything about the philosophy. Obviously, that's their motivation. And it's a shame. And Krishna Kun's got it. Spiritual bypassing. I interrupted you, Krishna Kun. Did you want to say something else?
I was appreciating Lila Purushottam Prabhu's comment. I see how this is true, that if the root of it, the beginning stage is not genuine, then it can only be pride or self-centeredness, which really stems from the same mentality of I am the Ishvaruha Mahambogi.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to kind of make this distinction for myself, how important it is to be fully honest with ourselves, whether our feelings of inadequacy are actually
Self-pity.
stemming from genuine desire to please Guru and Krishna more, or whether it's stemming from feelings of low self-esteem. You know, like Damodar says, the difference between humility and feeling of inferiority is small and happy or small and miserable. I love this. I think it's so descriptive.
So we have to even try to, in the beginning, we're so young, we have to learn to see ourselves through the eyes of Krishna's devotee. And this is partly what's caused a lot of troubles, I think, in our society too. That's our principle, and everybody understands that. But because we don't have a lot of self-realized Mahabhagavat Vaishnavas who are qualified to see like that, what we've done, we created a managerial system where we appoint people to, in effect, be the seers and managers of other people, but they're not always a proper seer. And sometimes their motivation isn't so pure, and devotees feel offended by it. So at that point, just as we were commenting in our Pariprashna group today, we have to distinguish between the form and the essence, or the institution and the process of Krishna consciousness and the institution thing. Small and happy or small and miserable. That's good on finding. Bhakti Vigamaraj goes on. I'd like to try to run. There's a poem that he gives, a Russian poem translated into English. It's really good. I'd like to see if we can make it down there for that. And he quotes this line, my Guru Maharaj used to paraphrase this, Antanishta Bahir Vyavahar, that Mahaprabhu told Raghunath Das Goswami. On the inside, you cultivate your bhakti. On the outside, you look like an ordinary person. And so this is the way we should behave in this material world. And he gives Kunti Devi's conclusion toward the end of the prayers, that just as the Ganga flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attention be constantly drawn to you without being diverted to anyone else. And here we go. Boris Pasternak, Anapayani Radha. Do you know him? Am I pronouncing his name properly?
Yes, I know him. Boris Pasternak, famous
Okay.
writer.
Say
in
his
Russia.
name. Say his name again. I'm not pronouncing it right.
You did it pretty good. Boris Pasternak.
Okay. I can't do it. Illustrates the state of mind. The protagonist has been reading the New Testament throughout the night and is revitalized with a sense of new life, the true life of the soul. This can only be experienced when we feel connected to God and awaken to empathy, fellowship, and wonder, as we see in the character. Early morning after the sleepless night, he dashes into the street and sees the world anew. He feels empathy and kinship for people rushing to work in the snowy blizzard. And then Maharaj gives an English translation of this Russian poem, which I wish we had the Russian Anapayani and Nikunja Biharni. You could look at it and make some further comments. But I like reading poetry, so let me do a poetry reading here. You can look at it. You were my life some time ago. Then came the war, the devastation. You vanished, leaving me alone without a trace or explanation. When many years had passed me by, your voice awakened me by chance. I sat and read your word all night and came to life out of a trance. Since then, I feel more drawn to people to blend into the morning crowd. I'll cause commotion and upheaval and send the sinners bowing down. Outside, I rush for this alone, like for the first time, standing speechless. I see these streets and snowy roads, these desolate, abandoned bridges. I am welcomed everywhere I visit. There's light and comfort, and time flies, and in a matter of just minutes, the landscape can't be recognized. The blizzards weaving by the gate from falling snow that won't diminish, and haste not wanting to be late, the people leave their meals unfinished. For all of them, I feel compassion, as if their troubles are my own. I melt myself like snowflakes ashen and knit my brows like the dawn. I walk among these nameless men. Before my eyes, a world is spinning. I lose myself in all of them, and only in this is my winning. So Maharaj, it's such a beautiful book. He's using Kunti Devi's prayers as kind of a foundation, but he's pointing out in the writing of different famous poets, like this particular Russian poet, different particular feelings we can see. And he presents here, this poem depicts two contrasting feelings: fearless energy after contact with the truth, conveyed in the lines, all cause commotion and upheaval and send the sinners bowing down. And also at the same time, humility expressed in the final lines, I lose myself in all of them, and only in this is my winning. When I lose myself, I lose my false ego. That's my only advancement. It's the only benefit that I get. And so he expresses that both emotions of delight and reverence for God are the same. Feelings of love for others, fearlessness, humility, and compassion all coexist and underpin each other. They surface from within when we reconnect with Krishna. This is what Queen Kunti begs for in her prayers. It's beautiful. Okay, so I that's all of my notes that I have today, and we could comment some other things with us later than I want. Maharaj, there's a lot of other things he says. It's a really, you got to read the book. It's a great book. I'm
Is
feeling a
that
little inspired to.
that you're gonna write the forward for?
No, I think he just wanted me to write some appreciation for the book or something. I don't know if he'll put
Gonna be
my,
published. It's not published yet.
no, but he wanted me to finish it. Uh-oh, it's finished in Russian. Uh-huh.
It's already published in Russian a long time ago, so but I was wondering,
Acha.
so since you got all of that in Russian, all those commentaries, did he send you all book translated in English?
Um, well, if that were true, I can't really say, but if that were true, I wouldn't be able to share it with anybody without Maharaj's permission.
Mm-hmm.
It's really tempting because every word sounds like a very deep nourishment.
I really, you know, Lila Purushottam Prabhu, you're familiar with some of Maharaj's kathas. Uh, you should read perhaps again the article that we printed in our Govardhan magazine from
Uh-huh.
Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj.
Mountain of Love. Mm-hmm.
And you get a taste of his style of writing, which you can see here also. It's very artistic. It's not just scientific and just slokas and philosophy, although that's there, but there's also a lot of play on words and a lot of sweetness and a lot of poetic usage and things. It's really, it's first class. That's all I can say. Okay, anybody else have any comments, corrections?
Thank you so much. Can I say a few words?
Please.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Bet if
all
we can
that.
see you though.
I'm sorry, I really can't show up because I'm in the bed with my stuffed animals.
That's
I'm
okay.
sick right now. So yeah, I really, really appreciate the whole Kata, how you started with all those facts I didn't know before about Prabhupada, that the only first recording of the prayers was Kunti's prayers. So when he was in New York, and that he was reciting those prayers in those difficult times when he lived his body. So it was really, really interesting and heart touching to hear those things, which made those prayers for me even more significant. And of course, thank you so much for your deep reflections on the prayers itself and bringing up those meditations my Guru Maharaj have. So really appreciate the whole kata, and I wish we can go further, on other prayers and everything.
Hey, Anapayani, when we finish in a few minutes, do you have a few minutes, Krishna Kundan, I could talk with you?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So anybody else with any reflections or comments or anything?
Yes, thank you very much for this article about Srila Prabhupada. It's really amazing. The whole article and these facts about Srila Prabhupada. And for myself, I could say that 5 years ago, this book was published, and actually it saved me, really saved me, this book of Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, from my feeling of this kind of resentment that from the time that I this being victim, this feeling of being victim, and from some dealings with devotees and and my family and everything, and especially for me it was a very bright image of Ashwatthama actually, and he is and how Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj is making this big difference between ignorant stubbornness and sincere determination. So,
Ignorance and sincere determination.
yes, ignorant stubbornness, stubborn, and determination. Like stubbornness and determination. Like what is the difference? And when I saw like it in myself, and I was thinking, no, I don't want to be like Ashwatthama.
You saw you're a little bit of a stubborn person sometimes.
Yes, yes, and yeah, and yes, about the thing that why Sampradhanatmika is should be the first because it is like in connection with God. All these feelings of guilt or some other, if they're really like in not connected with understanding who am I and who is God and who is Krishna, what kind of God is Krishna, they really don't let us progress. Like from my side, I would say this feeling of guilt is something. Okay, I'm guilty. I can unbeat it. Okay, just let me in peace. Just like this. Okay, is it enough for you that I feel guilt? Just let me be in peace. Okay, let me be guilt. But if it is in connection with Krishna and with devotees, we don't stay alone. We go to devotees and we tell the devotees about this, and we ask really for solution. And this way.
Yeah, that's important. If we don't go to Krishna's devotees, if we don't go to Gurudev with that, then it's just false. It's just some imagination in my mind that I'm so advanced. I'm chanting 1 lakh or 3 lakhs a day. I'm doing this thing and that thing, but I'm not going to Krishna's devotees and opening my heart up and surrendering to them and accepting their chastisement and learning from them who I am. As Haridas Thakur says, is it Amita Adama Tumi Adamatarana? This is one of his statements in Harinam Chintamani. This is who I am. I'm fallen. Amita Adama. And I know who you are, he says to Mahaprabhu. Tumi Adamatarana, you're the deliverer of the fallen. Ubaye Sambande, this is our connection. So that's that when we have that move, when we have that personal connection, then it begins. Okay, anybody else with anything?
Thank you, Prabhu, for everything. I'm just maybe it's a question to Nikunja Biharini if we will have a space to continue to go in this format through the rest of the prayers, or if we rush to get somewhere to other classes or
As you wish, because we have the whole summer, because it will be vacation in School of Bhagavatam. So
So wait a minute, that means that
Uh,
for this summer, we're gonna, not just the next session, but we're gonna just be, we have nothing really in front
no,
of
no,
us.
no. There are okay, 8, 9, 10, 11, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There are 8 lectures of, and we did not start even listening to them. The first one is on the learning platform now. And but after this, and in School of Bhagavatam with other devotees, we are finishing in the beginning of June with these lectures, and it will be vacation the whole summer. But we can continue now with Queen Kunti's prayers if we want to, and we can start this 8 lectures later and do and study them
Well,
in summer.
you're the boss. What do you say?
Okay.
Okay.
Pani Radha likes
What
this.
does okay mean?
Pani Radha likes this idea. Yes, please say. Anapani.
I mean, Neil Purushottam Prabhu asked that question, so if we can continue the prayers, which we started, the Kunti's prayers, and then after that go to the classes. So, and I think it's really nice since we have extra time, like a couple of months
Okay,
of summer.
then can I propose, and I really, this is kind of what I was really hoping for with this Bhagavatam study group. Honestly, I love everything Maharaj does. But I was a little bit kind of blown away by the synopsis of the cantos and the overview of things. It's just, it's a wonderful thing to listen to, but it's kind of like a spectator sport. I felt like
Oh.
it was very hard to enter into. Let me finish it. So we could maybe just focus on the next 2 or 3 verses of Kunti Devi's prayers. That's what I was hoping for. We'd have certain verses that we focus on, and we just go through as we can read different commentaries and read what Prabhupada says, and think about how it applies to me, and that, and look at Maharaj, what he said about it, since our Russian speakers at least have his book.
Wow, yes, all of us, we like this idea. Yes, Jai.
Is
Yeah.
that good? You were going to correct me or say something, Kunji Biharni?
No, no, no.
Okay,
Yes,
Krishna
you're
Kun
right.
has her hand raised, but I don't know if it's actually really Krishna Kun, if it's some mole or somebody, a virus or something, and just raise your hand because we can't see
Obviously a
her.
virus. Obviously a virus. I just wanted to mention that my understanding was it's really nice to go through Kunti Devi's prayers the way, I mean, this session was very, very nourishing for me. But my understanding was that we are the idea was about looking at these or some other set of prayers is to examine them from a particular perspective, which was given by Maharaj. And I see Nikunja Biharini, it looks like I got the right idea there. So, did I get it right?
Yes, we can do this also. We can continue, but it was not so. We tried like 3 of us last time. We read one half of these prayers and we were trying to find this 10 topics of Bhagavatam in these
Yes.
prayers.
Did you?
Uh, we can continue with this also if you would like.
I would
But
suggest
maybe like
personally, rather than trying to find the 10 topics of the Bhagavatam and these prayers, which sounds like an Easter egg hunt or something, I'm not, honestly, I'm not really personally so inspired by that. If everybody wants that, I'm fine. But I would suggest rather, at least a few of us, with the exception of Lula Purushottam Prabhu, we can go through and see what Goswami Maharaj had to say about Kunti Devi's prayers about these next few verses. And Lila Purushottam Prabhu, you can see what Vishwanath says, and maybe Jiva and different commentaries and Prabhupada and things.
Well,
Maybe.
Note, could you please send me the Sarata Darshini at least, that chapter, the 8th chapter?
Yeah, I can do that. Okay, maybe I can even send you some other stuff too. And then we can all look to it, and that's Maharaj's mood.
yes.
And I find that much more exciting than applying the 10, what are the 10 different topics of the Bhagavatam and how do we see them in these verses, which, you know, an Easter egg hunt to me.
What is also Maharaj's interest in the guidance of that study is that he wants us to personalize it. And I can see that in this type of discussion that we've had today, it's much more possible than what we've experienced last time. If Nikunja, Biharin, and
Yes, sure.
Anupani can agree with
For
me on
sure.
that.
Yeah, I personally, I'm sorry to be negative, but I really don't feel very inspired just to repeat and parrot like what Maharaj said. And it turns into a memorization thing to learn what Bhaktivedanta Maharaj said about certain things, which I love and is beneficial, but I'll just listen to the tape or something. But I'm excited, and I think his purpose in having these programs like this is so that we interact and we see what is relevant for us as individuals, and things come out and we discuss it. That's exactly what Mars wanted. So we can do a combination. We can hear his vision about something like we could continue what we did next week. I think what we did today, reading through some of Maharaj's comments from this English book about some of the. I'm not sure if he goes through all Kunti's prayers. Does she? Does he?
Yes.
Okay, so we can read what he says about the next few verses, 3 or 4 or whatever. We'll see. It can be fluid. It doesn't have to be.
So that we are all prepared. If we say like 3, then we can really focus on those 3.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's say
And
that
maybe we might do 4 or 5 possibly, or we might only do 1 or 2, but we have a general concept. That's cool. I'm inspired by that.
Okay. Wow. It's
Bhagavatam's a living thing.
yeah, it's 280 pages in book.
All right.
really looking forward to have it in a hand, actually.
Wow. I feel
And
very blessed to be with you
and
guys.
I can give a hope for you. For example, from those 8 lectures, which we from School of Bhagavatam, 5 lectures are on one verse, 111.
Ah, five lectures on the first verse of the Bhagavatam. As some of my family members used to say when I was growing up, praise the Lord.
Sounds appropriate to me.
Yeah, that's a lot more exciting for me. I can get but to try to do a whole canto or something, an overview. It's beautiful to hear the lecture. I really like it they were amazing lectures. It's so good. But then to try to sit down and discuss it, you can't. All you can discuss and really get into is these 2 sentences that Maharaj said. And then we go on for 2 hours about those 2 sentences, and it's an ecstatic discussion. But if you just want to try to go through and cover everything that he said, you'll go crazy.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Yeah, like
Okay.
how was today's paragraph, and we could discuss every sentence for the whole session.
Yeah. And the mysterious hand that has no body is giving a thumbs up. So all right. So let's go ahead and finish here if that's okay with everybody.
Thank you so much.
Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila
Yeah.
Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol,
Hari
Vansha
Bol.
Kalpadri. On a maybe we can go on our personal thing a little.
Do you want me to turn off?
It's okay.
You connect yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vansha Kalpadribhishcha, Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Nanda Kori Vaishnavindaki.
Ja.